Minecraft hardcore, but I'm on half a heart. Day 1. I started by spawning into the world and checking out my surroundings. I gathered some wood from a dark oak tree before crafting a wood pickaxe and gathering some stone. Once I had enough, I crafted some better tools and made my way through the forest, taking out some pigs in my path. My travels led me into a birch forest where I spotted some coal in a sinkhole. I carefully climbed down, checked the cave for mobs and mined the coal. I continued onwards, and not long after, I found a small cave. I crept my way through the cave, checking every corner for any danger, and eventually found some iron. Once mined, I smelted the iron and cooked my food before crafting a shield and a sword. Now that I was better prepared, I made my way through the rest of the cave, which revealed a dead end. So I made my way back up to the surface and continued my journey. I was mostly looking for a village so that I could obtain and upgrade a bow, as that would be a huge help in the long run. But soon after, the sun was starting to set, so I placed down my bed and slept through the night before the mobs started to spawn. Day 2. I began by breaking my bed and heading down to a cave entrance. I mined some of the exposed iron, but decided to not head further in as I wasn't prepared. So I set up a furnace to smelt my iron and took out some chickens before crafting an iron pickaxe and bucket. I continued my search for a village, and my travels took me to the ocean, where I soon spotted a shipwreck off in the distance. So, I made my way over and swam down to loot the chest, using doors to catch my breath. The most valuable item I obtained was a treasure map, so once I finished looting, I started a hunt for the treasure. Once I arrived, I started to dig and found the chest fairly quickly. I looted it for some basic resources and headed over to a village I spotted on the other side of the water. I started checking the houses for any loot, and once I was finished, I set up camp nearby just as the sun was starting to set. Day 3. I started by crafting and placing a chest at my new base location before unloading my inventory. My next goal was to obtain an infinity bow due to how useful it'd be, so I started chopping down trees for sticks so I could trade for emeralds. Once I gathered enough, I converted a villager to a Fletcher and began trading. But I ran out of sticks before I had enough emeralds, so I repeated the process until I had enough for an infinity book. Next up, I attempted to trap a villager and convert them to a librarian, but I had some issues and they ended up escaping just as the sun was starting to set. So I headed over to my bed just to find the same villager. I built some more walls to trap it, kicked it out, and slept through the night, while it was right on top of me. And this led me to day 4. Where I had some more issues keeping the villager contained and instead followed one into a house, where I trapped it and began cycling trades until I finally got an infinity book. I headed over to the Fletcher and bought a bow for the book, but realised I needed iron for an anvil before I could combine them, so I prepared my inventory for a mining trip and headed out in search of a cave. Shortly after, the sun started setting once again, so I placed down a bed and slept through the night. Day 5. I began by making my way back to base to grab a bow for my mining trip. I got the bow, traded with a Fletcher to get some arrows, and headed out to find a cave, first checking out the mountain next to the village. I took out some cows before spotting some iron, and carefully climbed my way up before gathering it. I mainly wanted to explore a hill that wasn't too far from where I was now, so after checking out the mountain, I started to make my way over. Just as I approached it, I found a smaller cave and decided to make my way in, luckily not running into any mobs before I checked the whole area. I then headed up the hill, where I found an opening with a zombie in it. I took it out for my very first monster takedown, and another came around the corner just to meet the same fate. Before heading in, I made my way up the hill and started to scout out the area, mining some emeralds and iron while I was looking. I decided to head back down to the opening and cautiously made my way in, taking out a spider before creeping forwards. I was mostly checking for any hidden mobs, which revealed another spider. After taking it out, I made my way towards a corner where yet another spider revealed itself. As I made my way around the corner, I saw a creeper, so I took it out and headed forwards, which revealed a dead end. So, I went to explore some more of the cave, but realised it was nighttime, so I placed down a bed and slept through the night, bringing day 5 to an end. Day 6. I started by breaking my bed and making my way to the unexplored area of the cave, but quickly realised it just looped around to the entrance. So, I started heading over to some stony hills I saw in the distance, as I still needed 16 iron for an anvil. Once I arrived, I checked the area for any exposed ores and managed to find 10 more iron ore, so I continued onwards until I hit the jungle, mining an additional 2 iron as I arrived. The jungle was a bit risky due to how foliage affected movement, but I still made my way further in, roughly heading back to base. On the way through, I took out a group of cows for some additional resources, however the sun was starting to set soon after, so before the mob spawned, I placed down my bed and slept through the night. Day 7. I began by breaking my bed and making my way out of the jungle, slowly heading back to base. I still needed to gather 4 iron for an anvil, so when I spotted a cave along the way, I decided to venture in. The initial area didn't have much to offer, but there was a drop down that led further in, so I carefully dug a staircase and continued searching for iron. I ended up in an area with several different tunnels to go down, but I did spot some iron near the center. After some thought, I decided to risk going in, not knowing what was around the corners. Suddenly, a spider jumped out at me, however I managed to run back to safety and take it out from a distance before heading back in. I began checking and lighting the different tunnels to avoid an ambush from any mobs, and once it was somewhat safe, I gathered the iron for a total of 4 and made my way back up to the surface. Once I was up, I made the short trip back to base where I put my iron into smelt just as the sun was starting to set. So before the mobs started spawning, I started to sleep through the night, bringing day 7 to an end. Day 8. I started by sorting out my inventory after the mining trip before crafting sticks to trade with the Fletcher. By the time I returned, the iron was ready and I finally crafted an anvil. So, I grabbed the Infinity Book and combined it with my bow. The next goal was to add power 5, so I left the bow in the chest and made my way to the forest. I began chopping down trees so I could trade for more emeralds, and once I had enough, I made my way into the village to begin cycling trades. I ended up in the church where I converted the cleric. However, after a few cycles, I accidentally punched him in the face, so I found another villager to convert and spent the rest of the day trying to get power 5, but the sun started to set before I could. So, I headed into one of the houses and slept through the night. Day 9. I started by heading over to the villager I was converting and continued cycling through their trades, still waiting for power 5. After a little while, I realized I might not have enough emeralds to make the trade in the first place, so I ran back to base to grab all the wood and headed over to the Fletcher. Once I traded all my sticks, I still wasn't sure if I had enough emeralds, so I headed over to the forest to gather some more wood, and along the way, I died. To be honest, I'm amazed I made it this far. It was a lot of fun, so if you enjoyed this challenge, be sure to subscribe for more. Or you can just watch the next one on Shorts now. And a special thanks to the channel members, Jessica, Apontato, Renz, Forgotten Dreary, Antec, and all the Tier 1 members. And thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed, drop a like and subscribe.